YouTubers to my channel of an everyday life of an Aspie. If you're new, I'm Aspie. I'm all about creating mental health and awareness and sharing my life stories. So today, as you know, obviously this is going to be a different uptake because, as you know, I'm all about health and awareness and spreading awareness and acceptance through autism and mental health. So today I'm going to introduce you to a new person on the channel by the name of Mary Hammer from Mary Hammer Music and Vlogs, which I'll link in the description below as well as in the screen below you to where you can reach her. I want to thank you, Mary Hammer, for taking your time to actually come onto the channel, because as we know, it's really hard for some of us because of fear of judgment and everything else of what goes in between this. So I'm going to ask this few series of questions as it has been shown in my last few videos, and hopefully in saying this that she will share with us today with two different types of conditions and two different parts of the topics that we're going to share today. So the very first question is based on what's the name of the conditions you were diagnosed with, and basically what it's known for, any clinical names or common name for a matter of fact.
Hi there, this is Mary Hammer from Mary Hammer Music and Through the Rain Coaching, and today I am here to talk about my ADHD. And thank you so much, Aspie, for letting me be on your channel and raise awareness. And it's an honor to be here. So, what is the name of my condition? So, one of the conditions that I have is ADHD, which stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder.
The signs and symptoms of the condition you're discussing today?
What are the signs and symptoms? So, mostly it has to do with being able to concentrate, being able to keep your mind on one task, or sometimes I will hyper-focus my attention and I will focus on something so intently that nothing else matters. So it can kind of go one of both ways. And then another thing that ADHD has is executive function disorder. A lot of different doctors have different viewpoints about what the executive functions are, but in general, one is working memory, which is essentially if I'm talking about a topic and someone comes and talks to me about something else, someone with working memory would be able to take that thing that they were talking about before, put it up on a shelf, address the person that just came in and talked to them, and then when they went back to talking to the other person, they could grab that information off of the shelf and start talking about it again. But if you have trouble with working memory, that shelf collapses. So you end up talking to somebody, someone else comes in, you talk to them, you come back to the first person, and what was I talking about? The second executive function is cognitive flexibility, which I tend to have that one pretty well down. That's essentially just flexible thinking. And then the third one is inhibitory control, which involves not being distracted or being able to resist temptation. And so they've actually done studies with ADHD kids where they will give all the kids in the room a marshmallow, and then they'll say, okay, you have two choices. You can eat your marshmallow now, or you can wait and get 2 marshmallows later. And the kids with ADHD tend to not be able to help themselves, and they eat the marshmallow, and then they don't get the second one later. So that's the resisting temptation. And then not being distracted, obviously that's pretty self-explanatory.
The causes and triggers of the condition.
What are the causes or triggers for my condition? I don't know actually what my triggers are for ADHD.
What do you do to treat the condition? How do you manage your conditions on a day-to-day basis?
I think definitely not getting enough sleep, not exercising, not doing things that would help my mind, like meditation. Those are things that help it, but so not having those things, I guess, would be my trigger. But it's pretty prevailing throughout my life.
How and when were you diagnosed?
When and how was I diagnosed? So when I was 12 in 6th grade, they called my parents in and said, hey, we think your kid has ADHD, and that's why she's been an A student and suddenly is not anymore. And also I would talk out of turn all the time, always get my name on the board. It was insane. But my parents decided that I just needed more of a challenge, so they took me out of school and enrolled me into homeschooling, and my grandmother, my Nana, took an early retirement from teaching to come teach me. That allowed me to graduate early, go into college early, all that fun stuff. But I still had this problem, especially when I wasn't being challenged, and especially when I was learning or trying to do things that I didn't think were fun. I have a really difficult time of doing those things. So I think it was about 10 years ago when I finally said, you know, this is too much for me. I need to do something about this. So I went into I called up I called up the mental health department at the clinic that I go to. They had me go see a general doctor, who then sent me to a therapist, who then sent me to a psychiatrist, and they were the ones that diagnosed my condition of ADHD. And one of the fun things that he did is he actually tested my working memory by talking to me about something, asking me a question, and then in the middle of me talking, he banged on the wall, and it distracted me for a moment, and I didn't know why he did that, and then I went back to trying to tell him what I was telling him, and I had completely forgotten what I was going to say. So he pretty much knew at that point, and I'm sure other points during the conversation, that I had at least working memory disorder, if not full ADHD.
The struggles you have faced on the daily, and how did you overcome them?
What are the struggles of my condition, and how have I overcome them on a daily basis? One of the ways that I overcome this on a daily basis is I actually take medication. So one of the medications that I take for my depression is also for ADHD, and that's Wellbutrin. And I believe Wellbutrin increases the amount of norepinephrine in your brain, which is essentially noradrenaline. So it's a type of adrenaline that is in your brain. Other things that I have been able to do that have helped me a lot is having specific places for things, because I would constantly lose stuff. I would know where my keys were, I wouldn't know where my phone is, I wouldn't know where my shoes were, and things like that. And now, after years and years of trying, I finally was able to find a place for everything and everything in its place. That's actually not true. My house is a mess. But for those key specific things that I need to find, like my keys and my shoes, I do have a place that I always put them, no matter what I'm doing. I don't just kick my shoes off anywhere. I make sure to put them where my shoes.
Has your condition ever stopped you from doing anything you loved? If so, what?
Has my condition ever stopped me from doing things that I love? Sort of. So having conversations with people that are linear, I can't do very well. And I have to, I guess I would say that no, for the most part, for ADHD, just because the things that I want to do but I can't do are not the things that I love. So the things that I love are the things that I tend to do well, or I tend to be able to focus on more than the things that I don't love. The things that I don't love, I can't find the attention to do. So I guess another way of putting this is, does my condition prevent me from doing things that I want to do? Yes, absolutely. I haven't done my taxes in 2 years. I have a severe problem cleaning up. I get overwhelmed very easily, and that can be from both, like, that can actually be from the other conditions that I have as well, which I'll talk about in another video. But, you know, not having the ability to do the things that I want to do, but I don't find fun, that's a pretty big problem.
What advice would you like to give to the audience about your condition?
What advice would I give to people that have my condition? I would say don't give up on trying to overcome it. And there are just little tweaks that you can make that can help you stay on track. One of the things that I do is I plan my day out ahead of time, and even if I don't follow that precisely, I also write down the things that I've accomplished during the day, because for ADD people especially, we can sort of forget things, and it's very easy to forget what we've accomplished or what we've done during the day. So sometimes at the end of the day, we can feel like we haven't accomplished anything, even though we have. And a lot of that also has to do with the fact that ADHD people tend to be very, very busy, but sometimes not get things done. So we'll be doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and writing down what you've accomplished during the day gives you a focal point. And so you're actually writing them down as you're doing them, not just at the end of the day. As you're doing them, you're writing them down. And it kind of sets your brain up to think, okay, what else can I accomplish today? What else can I do that I can write down on this list so that my list can grow?
What are the myths and misconceptions about the condition you wish to abolish?
Myths or misconceptions about ADHD. So I hear things on both sides. One is that ADHD, it does not exist, and that all it is the child not being stimulated, or not, or the person not being stimulated, or the person not having enough of a challenge. Now, there is something to be said for that. If you have a child or a person who thrives off of learning, if they like to learn, then yeah, if you're giving them stuff that they've already learned before, they're going to start reverting back, and they're going to start, acting out and talking out of turn because it's boring for them. That's the thing, is you want to make it not boring. And if you can do that for yourself, awesome. If you're an adult with ADHD, if you have a child with ADHD, just find ways that they can have fun with it. But no, it is not just a child not being challenged. The other thing that I hear is that ADHD is a learning disability. And I tend to, I think that can definitely be part of it, but it's not the whole of it. It's not just a learning disorder, and people, I think, I don't know, I just don't like the term learning disorder in this context, because if they are given the information in a certain way, or if they're interested in it, there is no problem learning.
Are there any benefits of the condition? If so, what are they?
Are there any benefits to having ADHD? Absolutely. Much like a lot of other mental health disorders, they tend to be very creative. Us ADHDers tend to be very fun and random. And for people who have the H, the hyperactivity in their title, not just ADD, they can be very loud, they can be very boisterous, they can be very extroverted, not all of them, but they can be, and very entertaining. People with just ADD can be very introspective. They can be very aware of themselves and of what they need and how they're doing at that time. They also can have enormous powers to be able to, do something, learn something, follow through on something, as long as they are interested in it and it holds their attention, and especially if they have interesting people and new situations that are happening all the time. They can learn a lot of things about a lot of things, because especially if learning is one of their interests, then they can learn a whole bunch of stuff very, very quickly, and can cross-train, and that makes a good employee. If you need someone that needs to be cross-trained in a lot of things and can kind of switch between job and to job.
What are your pet peeves about the condition that you want to discuss and demolish?
What pet peeves do I have about my condition? I do have one big one, and that is that people think that everybody grows out of ADHD. Everybody thinks that, not everybody, but most people think that the only people who can have ADHD are kids, and you grow out of it. And if you need Ritalin or Adderall, you only need it as a child. So when I was taking Adderall, I had to get like double approval for the medication from my doctor, talking between my doctor and my, this is another thing that happens, I forget words, and my insurance. Talking between my doctor and my insurance, they had to double approve me, because the first time they said, hey, we need to approve this girl for some Adderall, they said, are you sure? Because she's an adult. Yeah. So even the insurance companies think that it's just something for kids.
Tell us briefly what's it like to live with your condition on a daily.
Describe what it is like living with my condition. Well, I do tend to have some mood swings. I know that also can be from my other conditions, but I know that ADHD, that can definitely happen a lot. I used to get very irritable all the time. I don't anymore, which is great. I think my medication helps with that. Losing things all the time. I used to take Adderall for my ADHD. I don't anymore. I just take Wellbutrin. But when I was taking Adderall, which is a stimulant-based medication, I would take my keys for my car, throw them in my purse, and then get out of the car, lock the door, and go on my merry way. After I got off of Adderall, and even when I am now on Wellbutrin, I will put my keys in my purse, and I will get out of the car, and before I lock it, and even after I lock it, sometimes I will have to check again to see if my keys are in my purse. And it's kind of like this compulsion. I don't want to compare it to OCD, because it's not, but it is a this thing where every time this happens, I get like a little rush of anxiety, and I worry that I've like either locked my keys in the car or I'm going to, and for some reason when I was on Adderall that didn't happen. What else? So I've already mentioned the fact that my house is a mess. I get distracted easily. Sometimes I will be in the middle of a sentence and I will forget what I'm talking about.
And last but not least, any advice you would like to give to the audience that is in a relationship that has a similar condition like you, or just has it themselves, what would you like to share with us today?
What advice would I give to someone who is in a relationship with someone that has ADHD? Be patient with them. Don't be surprised if your house is not the best looking. Don't be surprised if they get overwhelmed by things. If the dishes back up in the sink, they may get overwhelmed by that because the ADHD brain, and the way I describe it is there's a billion points of information that are coming in our brain simultaneously, and a normal neurotypical brain will filter out a certain percentage of those bits of information, and ADHD people have a harder time of filtering and deleting that information. So when somebody without ADHD looks at the dishes, they're like, oh, they're the dishes. When someone with ADHD looks at the dishes, they see every single individual plate and dish and fork and knife. And it all adds up in their brain, and they're like, ah, I can't do it. So definitely be patient with them and help them find stuff. Sometimes I will go looking for things, and I will look in a place, and then my husband's like, let me check. And then he'll look in the same place, and he'll find it. I know that happens with everybody, but it really happens with people with ADHD. Thank you again for joining me as I talked about my ADHD. And thank you, Aspie, for having me on your channel. Again, this is Mary Hamer from Mary Hamer Music and Through the Rain Coaching.
Thank you very much, Mary, for joining us today, and hopefully you've learned something about Mary. Don't forget to visit her channel. It will be listed in the description below. And all for the do, guys. Until next time, I'll see you again soon. Ciao for now.